Greetings, all you Canyon viewers. You did it! You made it! You're here! And I'm so glad you did. And we are nearing the end of our time in Daniel, and man, hasn't it been fun to walk through this awesome story together? And like we have done in all our videos, we'll go over this week's chapter together, and then at the end, we have some questions for you that are designed to help focus us and bring about fun, engaging discussions. So now, you know what to expect. Let's get to it. And we are moving towards the end of the prophecy section of Daniel, which, remember, takes interpreting through a specific lens. For example, you can't read an encyclopedia like you would Hemingway. Does that make sense? So Daniel chapter 11 provides some amazing prophetic insights into what was going to take place in future years. The chapter also begins the narrative that will finish in chapter 12, describing the climatic battles of the end times. Now, if you enjoy puzzles or working out the details of ancient history, chapter 11 will be right up your alley, because chapter 11 goes into great detail describing the various leaders who will be in contention for biblical lands and peoples. And without exception, each of the particular rulers described can be identified as a historical individual. And these leaders can be traced to Antiochus Epiphanes, who was the precursor to the Antichrist of the end time. And the main focus is on the reign of Antiochus, who ruled Syria from 175 to 163 BC. Now, his name means God is manifest, but was called by the Jews Epimanes, which means madman. Now, the prophecy speaks of war, invasions of armies, and arranged marriages. And the climax of Antiochus's reign was when he set up a statue of Zeus in the Jewish temple and ordered the people to bow down to this false Greek god. This is what's called the abomination that makes desolate, described in verse 31. And many believe Antiochus Epiphanes is an archetype of the Antichrist that is described in verses 40 through 45. Now, of particular interest to Christians is the physical warfare on the ground that is paralleled by the spiritual warfare going on in the heavenly realm. The cause for the spiritual warfare was the restoration of the Jewish people to the Holy Land as described by Ezra and Nehemiah. Satan and his demons were determined to stop that renewal, since they knew that from the Jewish people would come the Messiah. And the parallel on the ground was the effort to exterminate the people altogether during the reign of Xerxes, when Haman attempted to kill off the entire Jewish race. And the book of Esther details these events. The angel Michael's victory over the prince of Persia may have been paralleled with Queen Esther's ability to thwart this genocide. The second effort of Satan was to take place under Antiochus, who sought to obliterate the Jewish faith by forbidding its practice on pain of death. This second effort to wipe out the Jewish faith had a parallel with the angel's battle with the prince of Greece. The importance and applicability of all this historical record is to demonstrate how accurately God, through the Bible, is able to forecast and control future events and warn his people of their coming. The long section between verses 5 and 20 detail the wars between the Ptolemies and the Seleucids. So this is all leading up to the description of the great persecution under Antiochus Epiphanes in verses 21 through 35. The desecration of the temple involves stealing of the temple treasury and the removal of all the sacred items. The abolition of the daily sacrifices was made permanent by placing the statue of Zeus in the temple. So Daniel's vision begins to expand in verses 31 through 35 to include both Antiochus as well as the Antichrist at the end of time. Now, from our place in history, the vision is simultaneously looking backward in time and forward at the same time. So, say what now? From the backward view, we can confirm the accuracy of the vision. Everything took place just as Daniel prophesied. And this gives us hope of the accuracy of the prophecies that have not yet taken place, or the forward view. Now, have you ever heard of the normalcy bias? This is a predisposition in the minds of most people that everything will continue just the way it's always been. That's why you see so many survivors of floods, fires, and hurricanes not wanting to follow evacuation orders. The normalcy bias can be deadly when God warns us that things are going to change and change quickly. So we all should be listening to the advice of Daniel and do what's necessary to prepare for the end times, which are coming. But what does that look like? Pressing into Jesus, spreading the gospel, and making disciples. So let me quote from verse 33. Those who are wise will instruct many, though for a time they will fall by the sword, or be burned, or captured, or plundered. In verse 34, it says, when they fall, they will receive a little help, and many who are not sincere will join them. Some of the wise will stumble, so that they may be refined, purified, and made spotless until the time of the end. For it will still come at the appointed time. So we know from the book of Revelation that the Antichrist will come to the end of his reign, and Christ will establish his throne and kingdom forever. So in summary, we know from the past parallel passage that Daniel's vision was correct. And we believe from the future parallel vision that the events Daniel prophesied will come to fruition. So that leads us to the question, what are we each going to do with this knowledge that God has given us? Well, to help us get there, let's jump into this week's questions. So question number 1. Seeing how the angel's prophecy to Daniel was fulfilled exactly as was prophesied in subsequent years that followed through the kings and kingdoms of Syria and Egypt, describe what thoughts and feelings come to your mind in learning this truth. Now press pause. Question 2. In verse 33, the angel says that the wise will instruct many, though many will fall by the sword, be burned, captured, or plundered. What would help you to avoid joining with the Antichrist's deceit and fall prey to his deceitful intrigue and flattery? Press pause. Okay, last one. In verse 37, we are warned that the Antichrist will place himself over all other gods, and many who worship him will prosper for a short period. So what does it do to your faith to know that he will come to his end and no one will help him in verse 45. Press pause. Well, that's it for this week's group video. Thank you again for being faithful and committing to this study through the book of Daniel. And my prayer is that God is richly moving in your life and blessing you all for your faithfulness through your study, and don't give up. We are almost done. Looking forward to see you all next time for the final chapter. See you then.